Today is Friday, January 22nd, 2021. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, legendary Hall of Fame baseball player Hank Aaron, one of the greatest athletes in American history, died this morning at the age of 86. We will pay tribute to him. You will see the interview that I did with him 3 years ago. We were at the Global Hope Forum in Atlanta also, some of when I was honored by Hank Aaron in 2017 with a Champion of Justice Award. Also, we'll hear from Hall of Fame baseball writer Claire Smith, Howard Bryant, who authored a book on Hank Aaron. Also, we'll talk to Dr. Greg Carr, as well as Gary Howard, one of the first black sports editors in American history. And so we're going to pay tribute to one of our greats. Also, history was made today when the U.S. Senate confirmed retired General Lloyd Austin as the first black Secretary of Defense in American history. In Dallas, officials have stopped a plan to make coronavirus vaccines in black and Latino communities a priority. We'll talk with Dallas County Commissioner John Wiley Price. Speaker Nancy Pelosi is going to send an article of impeachment to the Senate against Donald Trump on Monday. And also, we'll talk to, in our education segment, we'll talk about President Joe Biden's executive order to pause student loan payments. And we'll preview a new film that looks at the relationship between the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the FBI by talking with its director. It is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Folks, today we lost the great legend Hank Aaron. He, of course, when he set the Major League Baseball record, 715 home runs, held that record for 33 years. Many say he is still the record keeper of that. In addition, when he retired, he had 23 major league records. He passed away this morning in Atlanta, his longtime home, at the age of 86. His nickname was Hammering Hank, and is one of the greatest baseball players of all time. In 1973, he endured racist death threats while breaking Babe Ruth's all-time home run record. During his career, he made 25 All-Star teams and won the National League MVP in 1957. Hank retired from playing baseball in 1976 and 1982 was inducted to the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. He's also in the Atlanta Braves Hall of Fame. The Braves retired his number 44. Many folks took to social media today to pay their respects to Hank Aaron. President Bill Clinton released this statement saying, with the passing of Hank Aaron, baseball has lost one of its greatest heroes. America has lost an inspiring role model and philanthropist, and I have lost a wonderful friend. My life was blessed by his friendship, kindness, and generosity. I first met him during my 1992 campaign when on the weekend before Election Day, he appeared with me at an event in Atlanta. President Barack Obama tweeted, Hank Aaron was one of the best baseball players we've ever seen and one of the strongest people I've ever met. Michelle and I send our thoughts and prayers to the Aaron family and everyone who was inspired by this unassuming man and his towering example. Former baseball player Barry Bonds, who broke Hank Aaron's home run record, tweeted, rest in peace, Hank Aaron, a true baseball legend. He added, thank you for everything you ever taught us, for being a trailblazer through adversity and setting an example for all of us African-American ball players who came after you. Folks, I'm going to read some more of these here in a moment. Right now, we're going to play for you the speech of Hank Aaron when he was inducted to the Hall of Fame in 1982.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Kuhn, league presidents, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I feel a great sense of humility, gratitude, and appreciation for this day and for what it means to me and my family. I'm extremely proud to be joining a group of men who performed on the baseball field, epitomize the highest and the best in professional athletics. I'm pleased to be joining them in the company of Travis Jackson, Happy Chandler, and Frank Robertson, some of baseball's greats. I also feel especially proud to be standing here where some years ago, Jackie Robinson and Roy Campanella proved the way and made it possible for Frank and me and for other blacks hopeful in baseball. They proved to the world that a man's ability is limited only by his lack of opportunity. The sheer majesty of this occasion and its significance overwhelmed me. For truly I reflect on my life, and particularly my 23 years in baseball. I am reminded of a statement I once read, and I quote, "The way to fame is like the way to heaven, through much tribulations." It had been for me, to quote a very popular song, a long and winding road. Nevertheless, I have been extremely blessed in my lifetime. I stand here today because God gave me a healthy body, a sound mind, and talent. For 23 years, I took the talent that God gave me and developed it to the best of my ability. 23 years ago, I never dreamed that this high honor would come to me. For it was not fame I sought, but rather to be the best baseball player that I could possibly be. I grew up in a home where there was little in the way of material goods, but there was an abundance of love and discipline. We therefore had much to share. And so too is this occasion for sharing, an occasion for Thanksgiving. For I did not make this journey alone. A lot of people contributed a lot of different ways to my success as a professional baseball player. And to them, I owe a deep debt of gratitude. The list is far too long for me to mention all of them. However, I must mention a few. I would like to acknowledge the presence of my parents, Mr. and Mrs. Herbert Aaron. Without whose love and encouragement this day could not have been. my wife, Billy, who brought an awful lot of sunshine into my life. And I'd like to introduce my children, Gail, Hanky, my oldest son, Larry, Dorinda, and Cece. Who have been supportive and understanding of my long absences away from home. My sisters and brothers who have always been some of my biggest fans. My teammates of the Milwaukee Braves, the Atlanta Braves, and the Milwaukee Brewers, thank you. I want to thank the wonderful people of Milwaukee and Atlanta, where I spent my baseball career. I also would like to thank Mr. John Mullen, who was introduced earlier, Mr. Bill Bartholomew, and also my boss, Mr. Ted Turner from the Atlanta Braves. Thank you for coming. And we also have sitting on the front seat is Mr. Al Thornwell, Executive Vice President. Thank you very much for coming. Finally, I'd like to thank some special friends and family who traveled here to be with me on this occasion. From Atlanta, Dr. Benjamin E. Mays, an ardent baseball fan, distinguished educator, and President Emeritus of Morehouse College, who today celebrates his 88th birthday. Thank you very much, Dr. Mays. I would like to thank the Locketts, Sam Frankel, my in-laws, the McDaniels, and the Swedes. Permit me also to express a special thanks to Mr. Walter Dunn and Mr. Carl Ware and other executives from the Coca-Cola Company for their presence and for providing transportation for our children and some of their friends from Atlanta, including Marvin Harrington, former Mayor Maynard Jackson, and Congressman White Fowler, and there are many other friends here. And there are many other friends here who I just cannot mention all of them. All of you have touched my life in a very positive way. I am so very grateful to you and so pleased that you could share this evening with me. Thank you very much.
Joining us right now, folks, is a number of luminaries, including Dr. Greg Carr. He is the chair of the Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University. ESPN sports journalist Howard Bryant, who also authored the definitive book on Hank Aaron, well, other than the one that Hank Aaron actually wrote. No, that's not Howard right there, y'all. That right there is Bob Kendrick, of course, who leads the Negro Leagues Museum. That is Howard Bryant. And we also are joined by Hall of Fame sports writer Claire Smith as well. Glad to have all of you here. I have an embarrassment of riches, so I got to figure out where I'm going to start first. And so what we'll do is we'll start first with the Negro Leagues. And so, Bob, we'll start with you. Of course, folks talk about Hank Aaron being a Hall of Famer, breaking the record of Babe Ruth with the Atlanta Braves, previously playing in Milwaukee. But his start came in the Negro Leagues.
Yeah, no, it did. And it's one of those awakenings, Roland, for so many visitors who come here. You know, many of us who are baseball fans really did not know of the fact that Henry Aaron's illustrious professional baseball career began in 1952 with the Indianapolis Clowns. Came to the Clowns 18 years old, skinny, cross-handed, hitting infielder, shortstop. And I'll never forget my dear friend Buck O'Neill, who says they're playing the Clowns in spring training in Mobile. And so he goes out to exchange the lineup card with Buster Hayward, who was the Clowns manager. And he looks at the lineup card and he sees that there's his name, Aaron, batting in the third spot. And he says, Buster, who is this kid, Aaron? And Buster Hayward says, oh, Buck, you got to see him. And Buck says, okay, well, we'll see what he got. Well, rolling by the end of the day, young Henry Aaron had gone 4 for 4 with 2 home runs. And so Buck and Buster are out for dinner that night. And Buck says, well, Buster, I ain't going to have to worry about that kid Aaron by the time you get to Kansas City. Then what you talking about? Oh, man, somebody going to sign him. And true enough, the Boston Braves would eventually sign him away from the Indianapolis Clowns and set sail on what becomes one of the greatest baseball careers ever. But in many ways, he validates the talent that was there in the Negro Leagues.
Claire Smith, you are a Hall of Famer, so I will go to you next. Your reflections on the amazing life and legacy of Hank Aaron.
Well, I'd like to speak to his timelessness. Only yesterday, I had the pleasure of speaking with Dusty Baker, and we were reflecting back on that date in '74 when Dusty was a youngster in the on-deck circle watching Henry Aaron hit the home run that took him past Babe Ruth and onto the Mount Olympus of home run hitters. He stood there for over a quarter of a century alone and undaunted. But Dusty was talking about the importance of family, baseball family. In that family, Dusty pointed to Satchel Paige as a teammate with the Braves, to Henry Aaron. We reminisce about Don Sutton and Phil Niekro. And Dusty said something very profound just yesterday. He said, if you love someone in your family, if you love someone in baseball, talk to them today because tomorrow is never promised. And sure enough, that proved so true today. And Dusty loved being that bridge between his generation and the youngsters coming up like Mookie Betts, but he knows where he learned mentorship. He learned it from Henry Aaron. He learned it from the man who taught him how to be a major leaguer, how to be a man, no matter how hard the times pushed you. If you couldn't learn from Henry Aaron, if you couldn't garner something good from all the bad that this world tried to throw at him, then you weren't paying attention.
Howard Bryant, 3,000 pieces of hate mail a day that Hank Aaron received as he was going towards breaking Babe Ruth's record. The tremendous amount of pressure and pain that he had to deal with was, look, a lot of folks couldn't handle that kind of pressure. You spent time with him authoring this book. Just share your thoughts.
Well, it's just an incredibly heavy day, and I can appreciate absolutely Bob and Claire as well. Claire, I just got a text from Dusty who said, there's a sickness in my heart right now. And we think we're all feeling that. And you're right, Roland, when you go back to 1974, I just think of Henry Aaron as he is the story of America in so many ways. When you think about what this country has asked of everybody, especially of African Americans, Henry Aaron did everything right. You're supposed to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, so they say. And Henry Aaron's father built his house by hand with random planks of wood and nails that he got from vacant lots. You're supposed to maximize your ability and do your best and try your hardest. And Henry played 23 seasons and was never on the disabled list, not once. And that doesn't mean he wasn't hurt. He just played. He just gave everything. And at the end of the day, when you were supposed to do everything that this country asked you to do, what was waiting for him but death threats, that people wanted to kill him? And that is the thing that I always take from him whenever we talked about these things. It wasn't that he wasn't aware of what took place or that he forgave what took place, is that America caught up to him, and he was able to enjoy, I would say, the last 25, 30 years of his life and recognizing that the rest of the country caught up to him and not the other way around.
Dr. Greg Carr, Mobile, Alabama, goes to the top of the sports world, hated by many, adored by many, but he does it all with tremendous grace and steel resolve.
Roland, first of all, thank you for doing this. Thank you for inviting me into the conversation with these heavyweights, with these people who everyone, if you don't know the names of these three people right here, you need to know them. Brother Bob, when I go to the shrine at 18th and Vine, I always linger around the fact that this brother came out of the Indianapolis Clowns. And if they included those statistics, which of course Harold, I mean, what am I saying? I'm torn up, brother, which is why Howard, the title of his book, The Last Hero, that's who we talking about with Henry Aaron. Like Howard said, they not counting y'all can't count them Negro League statistics. They're not gonna count Henry Aaron's 1952 when he batted .467. If they did, he'd be even over the top. I mean, you take his 55 home runs out of his record, he still got 3,000 hits. This man, you know, I guess I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about the fact that as a kid growing up in Nashville, Tennessee, there were two teams we kind of cheered for. One, the Cincinnati Reds, because we could hear them on the radio. They had a Clear Channel AM station, and Joe Morgan and all the black players, Ken Griffey's daddy, all them. And then the one to the south, the Atlanta Braves, Ralph Garr, Dusty Baker, who, according to Howard, is one of the only people who could call him Hank, because I'm just reflecting on the fact that his name is Henry. All these white sports writers, the same way Roberto Clemente said, no, you're not going to call me Bobby. They say they try to put Jackie on Jack. Henry Aaron, finally, and Willie Mays, brother. I tell my students this all the time. And I show them the picture of him hitting that 715th home run and his mama hugging him. And I repeat the story that is told, because I'm from Nashville. I was about 8, 9 years old when they said Gail was going to be kidnapped from Fisk. He's getting part of that damn near million pieces of mail he got that he kept a lot of it. And his mother, according to the lore, says, I'm going to jump up around your neck and hug you, because damn it, if these snipers are going to shoot you right now, they're going to kill me too, because it'll kill me to see you be killed. And brother, two brothers, I guess Billy Williams is still alive. I don't know what it is about Alabama producing them Negroes, but I tell you what, what I tell my students all the time in April when I show them that tape, I say, this is white Major League Baseball we're talking about, because there was black Major League Baseball. And in their dying gasp, the Negro League sent out a Mobile and Birmingham, two Negroes that rewrote your entire record book. That is the gift of black folk to baseball. The Hammer, the last hero. I'm taking this hard, brother. So I'm just glad to be here with y'all.
The point that Greg just made is something that I often say, that the major league talent was in the Negro Leagues. It was only called the major leagues because the white folks had money and they had better stadiums, better uniforms, better travel, better food. But Dizzy Dean knew where the best talent was, and the best talent was in the Negro Leagues. And I say that all the time on the show because I purposely do that because I need black people to stop allowing white supremacy to see what was black as less than, when the talent, because after Jackie Robinson comes in, who was the rookie of the year every single year after that? And so that's what the talent was. And so Aaron is born out of that tradition where if you couldn't play ball, you don't make a Negro League team. There were no scrubs on Negro League teams.
And I think, Roland, that's what we try to impress upon people. And I know Howard is, and you guys are familiar with that picture. And it's my favorite picture in the entire museum. And that is a picture of a young Henry Aaron, 18 years old, standing at the train station in Mobile, Alabama, about to go leave home, likely for the first time, to go chase that dream. And Howard, he told me, he said, man, I didn't know if I was leaving home to go play with kids my own age or grown men. And as you all know, he was going to play with grown men. But those grown men with the Indianapolis Clowns embraced young Henry Aaron, because when Henry Aaron made it, Henry Aaron took a part of them with him. And for us at the Negro Leagues Museum, that single nondescript photograph is a validating point. Yeah, all of a sudden now Henry Aaron validates all these other people that I've been talking about. You know, Claire's been here on the tour, And we talk about Josh Gibson and Cool Papa Bell and Boo June Wilson, Hilton Smith, Ray Dandridge, all these legendary stars, and people are very respectful. But I know that they're looking at me saying, okay, Bob, they were probably good, but I don't know if they're as good as you say they were. And then you see a young Henry Aaron, or you see a young Willie Mays, who had, before Mr. Aaron passed away, the two greatest living major leaguers, both come out of the Negro Leagues. And all of a sudden, maybe you gain a better appreciation for just how much talent was there in the Negro League. And so he leaves a tremendous void. Just like all the panelists, my heart is heavy. He was my all-time favorite baseball player. He was my childhood idol. He is the favorite person that I've ever toured. And I had a chance to take Howard, had a chance to take Claire, and I love touring them. But Henry Aaron is the all-time favorite person I've ever toured through this museum. And it was by far the greatest day in baseball. So this is not only professional, it is personal. And his passing leaves a tremendous void here at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum and with the Negro Leagues family by and large. And so I hope people do glean a better understanding and appreciation for just how much talent there was in the Negro Leagues.
You know what, Roland? One quick thing, and is that Claire knows this too. You know what Henry was doing when he died? I talked to Henry to wish him a Happy New Year a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about things, and he had a project going. There are 7 high schools in Jackson, Mississippi, that don't have fields. Black high schools that don't have fields. He was in the process of building baseball fields for them to have a place to play their home games. At 86 years old, he was still in the fight. Still in the fight for access. Still in the fight to make sure that people had access to the game the way he had access to the game. And I think the thing that I just find so amazing about him, one of the things that always drives me crazy about pro athletes is that when you're around them, they always make you feel like you're part of their entourage, like you work for them or that you're following them when you're actually a journalist. But Henry never did that. Henry asked more questions than he answered. He was more interested in you and more interested in what was happening and staying involved. And I think that he used to say to me all the time, how come you don't call me more often? Why don't you call me? And it was because you always wanted to be so respectful of the great Henry Aaron. I said, because you're Henry Aaron. And now you feel bad that you didn't take more advantage of it. But it's just an example of somebody who stayed in it every single day. He was present. And I just have so much respect for that and a lot of emptiness right now.
Claire, go ahead.
Howard, the one thing I wanted to tack on to that was it wasn't sports. It wasn't statistics and home run numbers. I mean, those are the asterisks to a great career. This month, he was showing our people the importance of vaccinations by showing us not to be afraid. Don't change the shiny objects where people are going to try to convince you that taking care of your health is somehow less important for you than it is for the rest of America. And he had his vaccination shot, and he put the public service announcement out there with Dr. Andrew Young. He was always looking out for our people on so many levels. You cannot underestimate the importance of an 86-year-old man thinking about our 86-month-old children and their big brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers.
It's interesting. 100%. It's interesting, Howard, when you're talking about wanting to call him and wanting to talk to him more. First of all, the reason I am wearing this Atlanta Braves jersey, everybody knows I'm from Houston. I only rock hometown teams. I only wear Houston stuff. I don't wear everybody else stuff. You will only see me wear the Jackie Robinson 42 jersey on April 15th. You will see me. I have not gotten it yet, but I will be getting a Roberto Clemente jersey because I greatly respected Roberto Clemente. But I'm wearing this jersey here because in 2017, I was one of the honorees that Hank Aaron personally chose as a champion of justice. My grandmother, Betty Logan, my paternal grandmother gave me and my brother a Hank Aaron signed baseball, and the autograph long faded. And so when we were, the group in the class of 2017 was Cito Gaston, civil rights leader Hank Thomas, one of the Freedom Riders, and former Labor Secretary Alexis Herman, and this little boy from Texas, me. And so Hank actually, he signed this jersey here. And this is only the second time I've actually worn it. So I said I was going to wear it today. So he signed this one here. And what was amazing was, and I showed the photo, I put the photo on my Instagram page earlier, I'm going to pull up in a second, was this here. The first time I met Hank Aaron was in 2013 at the White House. So there's a reception at the White House in 2013. It was Black History Month reception. And I see Hank Aaron sitting next to another one of our legends, Harry Belafonte. So I walk over, and I'm like, I already knew Harry. I interviewed Harry, and I was like, cool, I get to meet Hank Aaron. So I walk over, Claire, and I walk up and I said, Mr. Aaron, I have been waiting to meet you. So he turns around and he goes, so he starts getting up. Now, mind you, him and Harry are sitting there with their canes, okay? They get both with their canes. And I said, no, stay seated. He said, no. He said, I got to stand up for this. And I'm like, okay, all right. And he says, I need you to understand, Dr. Carr. He said, I've been waiting to meet you. I've been watching you, and begins to talk about how much he's a fan of my work. And I'm sitting there like, oh, hold up. How's it supposed to be reversed? He said, no. I need to stand up for this. And began to sit here and talk, and we began to talk, and after that, I would run to him at the airport when he was flying to D.C., would see him and his wife, Billy, and that's when we went to Atlanta. He spoke at the Global Hope Forum for John Bryant in 2017, 2018. We're going to be streaming that panel conversation that he did with Ambassador Andrew Young after this show. And was just always a gracious man and had the most unbelievable smile. That was Hank Aaron.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, no doubt. You know, my fondest memory.
Bob, go ahead, then Greg.
My fondest memory, guys, is we had him here in 1999 for his first visit to the museum celebrating the 25th anniversary of him breaking Ruth's record. We have an event across the street from the museum, Roland, at the Gym Theater, and an amazing conversation. But after the conversation, this kid from Crawfordville, Georgia, gets to sit down with Mr. Aaron and his wife, Billy, and Howard, a platter of Gates barbecue ribs. And I'm sitting there eating ribs with my childhood idol. It doesn't get any better than that. And every time he and his wife saw me, or they came here to Kansas City, they were like, don't you have some ribs with you?
No, it's just tremendous. And I tell you, there's so many different stories and things that you talk about with Henry. But I think what I really enjoyed most about dealing with him and talking with him was the number of times he would go out of his way to talk about things that interested him. And I just love that he wasn't the type of person where you would always just sit there and talk about him and his records. I remember, because he was a huge tennis fan, we used to sit there and talk about Venus and Serena. He had a tennis court in his backyard in Atlanta. And so it was just fascinating. I just loved the range, and and Claire, you know this too, the fact that he and Dusty and these guys, there is a Black baseball family that the other sports just don't have because of baseball history. And one of the things that Henry was always concerned about, and one of the things that Dusty is very concerned about now, is whether or not today's African-American players and today's biracial players, if they understand how important those links are. The only reason that I know these guys is because Dusty and Henry and them, they made sure you knew the history of black baseball. And Bob, Claire, Greg, this is us. This is a part of who we are as the culture.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that can't, and Dusty, I remember when Dusty was managing the Nationals, he was like, I don't think these brothers even talk to each other that much anymore. This is the real thing. And he was very concerned about that link to history disappearing.
Greg?
No, I'll just say one other thing. Howard, that's so important, brother. When Dusty Baker was managing the Nats, I would go all the time because of Dusty Baker. I haven't been back since they let him go. My commitment wasn't to the Washington Nationals. My commitment was to Dusty Baker. And Claire, when you talk about talking to him and with him, I think about the fact that it is that bloodline link, that link of memory that has kept our people going. Looking at that clip at the Hall of Fame, and I think about this now because I'm going back in the classroom next week, and we're going to talk about this. I'm going to show that clip. Why? Benjamin Mays?
Right.
Benjamin Mays. Wait. Marvin Arrington, Maynard Jackson. When and where Henry Aaron entered the room, Henry and Billy Aaron, they were institutional memory keepers. It wasn't even about sports. And so, it strikes me that Mobile, Alabama is the place where the last documented ship of enslaved Africans came in 1860. One of the people on that ship was a brother named Casula Lewis. He passed away in 1935. That's the year after Henry Aaron was born. So understand that when Henry Aaron went about his business in philanthropy, Henry and Billy Aaron, when they went about their business in institution building, when they've been about their business in education, forget the craft of Aaron, which is what we're going to hear all these other places talking about. All these other places are going to call. But when you hear a Claire Smith, when you hear a Howard Bryant, when you hear a Bob Kendrick, you are looking at memory keepers. And the young people especially have to understand that's the only way we're going to. And Henry Aaron is definitely a symbol of that. So love to his wife, to his children, to the family. We surround you in love because you showed us with your work how much you loved us.
Claire, Howard talked about, and Greg talked about the connection with the issues, the social justice issues. Well, that night when we were honored at the Atlanta Braves Stadium, we were in the suite. We were there with Hank Aaron. And I got a chance to chat with him about Colin Kaepernick. And we talked about it. And while we were talking, I asked him, I said, had he ever met Colin Kaepernick, ever talked to Colin Kaepernick? He said no. So I then called Colin Kaepernick and put those two on the phone where they got a chance to talk, where Hank Aaron praised Colin Kaepernick directly and wanted him to know how proud he was of him and what he actually meant. This was the interview where Hank Aaron talked about Colin Kaepernick. So we sound fine? Feel good? Hank, you had some thoughts about Colin Kaepernick.
I do. I think he's.
No, it's not.
I think.
Do it again. So, Hank, you got some thoughts about Colin Kaepernick?
Well, I think he's getting the wrong deal. I think that if I look at, I've been watching pro ball for a long time, and I think that if you look at all of the quarterbacks in the league right now, I think you have to say he is 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't think anybody can do the things that he do. So I just wish somebody would open up and give him a chance to do his thing and say, hey, he's entitled to whatever he did, and let's forget about it and let's go on with it.
And do you want to see other players stand up and stand with him?
I'd love to see some other players stand with him. I would love that. I think it would give him some incentive. I think it would help him. I think the thing that bothers me about this whole situation is the fact that he has gone to all these camps, I suppose, and nobody seemed to think that he he stands a chance of being number one. Here's a man that a young player who almost carried a team to a championship, to a Super Bowl. I remember that because I was a Raven fan and he was playing against my team, the Ravens. But be that as it may, I think that somebody needs to give this young man a chance.
And clearly, owners are making a decision that they do not want him signed.
I think this decision is coming from the owners. I don't think that it's coming from the general manager. I do know that Harbaugh and also other Newsom, I'm not putting them in harm's way, but I say that if they look at it and say, hey, let's open the season up, we can't open the season up with Flacco, then who's the second best?
Look, you went through the experience, Jackie Robinson, players standing up. Here's a guy who's speaking about police brutality, what's happening to African Americans, and it is if they're saying, we want you guys to just shut up, play ball.
Yeah, you know, and to be honest with you, I can understand what you're saying. Those days are gone by. You know, I talked to my grandson who's now going in college, and I try to tell him that, you know, when you're stopped by a policeman or something, unfortunately, you have your own right. You can tell people what to do. Now, when I was growing up, to be honest with you, many, many years ago, my mother always told me, say, if you got stopped by a cop, just throw your hands down and that's the end of it. But today, these kids are very smart. You know, and they understand and they know exactly what's going on.
Well, Colin was very appreciative of your words when you talked to him.
Yes. And I really enjoyed speaking with him. And I just hope that somebody, I really do, I just hope that somebody will find a way to give him a chance to play.
Got it. All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the honor.
Thank you.
Always good seeing you.
Thank you.
All right. Claire Smith, when I released that, ESPN, Fox Sports, everybody and their mama called me all across the country, reporting on what Hank Aaron said. And to Colin, that meant a whole lot to have a Hall of Famer legend like him tell him directly, you keep doing what you're doing.
Well, Roland, I am just glad that Hank Aaron got to live long enough to see the summer of 2020, because there was, we were in the desert for a long time when it seemed that the only color that black athletes cared about was green. And this past summer, thanks to the LeBron Jameses of the world and the Mookie Bettses, there might only be a handful, but they stood up and they spoke and they said, we're not playing. And their white and Hispanic teammates said, we're not playing if Mookie doesn't play. And I hope that made Hank Aaron proud, because I know Jim Brown had his back. I know Muhammad Ali had Bill Russell's back. I know Bill Russell had Willie Mays's back. And it was about time that our athletes stood up and had the backs of people who didn't have voices. And I hope that made Henry happy and proud.
Howard Bryant, your thoughts again about what Hank Aaron said in that video and how he served and he understood the importance of affirming the next generation.
Well, there's no question I felt like when I wrote Last Hero, I took one of the biggest risks that I think you could possibly take. And I'm not sure it's happened before in any other biography, which is there's a chapter in that book dedicated to somebody else. Who gets a chapter in somebody else's biography? But there's a chapter in there dedicated to Jackie Robinson. And when I talked to Henry about it, part of the reason was because it wasn't just the cliche of him saying we owe Jackie Robinson a debt of gratitude. He really believed, he's like, Jackie Robinson changed the entire trajectory of my life. Jackie Robinson made what was possible for me possible. He gave me a pathway. He said, Jackie was a veteran. Jackie was college educated. He said, I had nothing. I had no plan B. Baseball had to work. Otherwise, I don't know what I was going to do. And so the reason why I bring that up is because he understood the importance of recognizing what it meant to have a previous generation to be influenced by somebody, and therefore it was important to him to influence the next generations. You listen to the way Ralph Garr and the way Dusty and the way Jimmy Wynn and the way all those guys used to talk about Henry. It was that paying it forward. And then the way this new generation as well would talk about this reverence for him. It wasn't just because he was an amazing hitter who never struck out 100 times in a season. It was because of who he was as a person in terms of actually walking the walk. It's very rare.
Bill Russell, the great basketball player, tweeted this out today. Heartbroken to see another true friend and pioneer has passed away. Henry Louis Aaron. Folks, if y'all got the photo, please show it. Henry Louis Aaron was so much better than his reputation. His contributions were much more than just baseball. Janine and I send our deepest condolences, love to his wife and his kids. Again, Bill Russell, the great. Those are the type of individuals, players, Greg, who come from another era. What happens today, I think, is people look at a Bill Russell, they look at a Hank Aaron, and they see them as these old, gentle giants. But these were brothers who were on the front lines of history, who were going through what we're talking about, who were experiencing the sheer hatred of America and excelling at the highest level. No white athlete had to deal with what they went through and still win, and still be the best in their position.
And in Aaron's case, unlike Mays, who was in New York and San Francisco, unlike a Mickey Mantle or whoever else is in these big, this man is in Milwaukee and in Atlanta. And, again, just sitting here listening to giants who have chronicled our story. And when I hear you, Claire, talk about being glad that he was able to another generation, Black women in the city where he lived stand up against their owner and say no more. That WNBA sisters, I'm sure that just made his heart sing. And I think about something, and over the arc of the last, not even a year, Bob Gibson, right, out of Omaha, made transition, and thinking about Bob Gibson going to the White House, Jack Robinson there, Gibson saying this doesn't feel right, and going to stand on the corner and wait for the shuttle to take him back to the bus, and he looks over and he says, there's Jackie Robinson standing for the same shuttle. He didn't feel right about Nixon either. And that's the first time they had a conversation, thinking about Kurt Flood in St. Louis, talking about Bob Gibson took into a Nation of Islam meeting. It's not even the things that are public facing, the things that people kind of know about, or if they dug a little, they might know about it, or a film comes out like One Night in Miami and people say, oh, Jim Brown and Malcolm, Muhammad Ali and Sam Cooke. Yeah, it is those things that, as you say, Claire, the things that you all know about being in community with these folk who have what these young people now call platform, who had it in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, who endured all the abuse, but the things we don't see, the meals they shared together, the children who played together, the families who played together. And so that is the thing that we see in every generation. We see it with these young people. And I hope finally we'll take a moment, in a moment like this, which is, again, why I'm so grateful to even be able to sit here and listen to you all really talk, to introduce to another generation the people who are still on this side of the earth, who can help future generations understand the importance of what these women and men did, so that they can make their contribution and add their energy to this unbroken chain.
Claire, that was another career for Hank Aaron. Here he finishes baseball and becomes a highly successful businessman in Georgia.
Absolutely. And the fact that the Atlanta Braves were so proactive in making sure their front offices looked like their teams, that they were promoting and producing executives. First Black general manager was down in Atlanta way before we decided that the glass ceiling had to be broken, way before Al Campanis. The Braves did what they needed to do, and Hank Aaron was a senior executive with that team for the duration of his life. They didn't just say, turn in your uniform, we're finished using you, and we're finished riding you like a pack horse. You've done all you can do for us. And that was so self-affirming, I'm sure. We need more Henry Aarons to stand up and say Colin Kaepernick belongs in football, and the racism that was represented by the owner in the WNBA does not have a place at our table. No more. We're not putting up with that anymore. And I am just so glad that we as a group in the media got to report on athletes who found their voices and stood together and stood up for all those who couldn't be given the stage on their own. We have to stand up for each other, just have to.
Bob, your final word.
Well, for me, I will forever cherish Mr. Aaron as a fan. As a fan of this game. As I mentioned, he was my all-time favorite baseball player, my childhood idol. And Roland, as you know, when in those rare instances when you get to meet your idol, sometimes they don't meet what you believe, what you have always seen. But Henry Aaron superseded anything that I may have had in my mind about this man, and the humility, the grace, the dignity in how he carried himself. It just struck me. And I'll hold on to those memories. You know, we're hurting right now because that's what we as human beings do when we lose someone we love. Not necessarily mourning for Mr. Aaron. We're mourning for us because we lost someone that we love. But man, how fortunate are we to have had Henry Aaron and everything that he has left us. And Claire's right. I hope that we use Henry Aaron's life as a tool of inspiration, just as we try to do here at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, to use this powerful story as that tool of inspiration to empower people to continue to dream about possibilities. Henry Aaron did that for all of us.
Bob Kendrick, Claire Smith, Dr. Greg Carr. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland.
Well,
thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, folks, joining us right now is Gary Howard, longtime journalist who was the top editor for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Of course, Milwaukee was the place where Hank Aaron played. Gary, how you doing?
I'm doing quite well. How are you, Roland?
Doing great. Share your thoughts about the loss of the legend, Hank Aaron.
Well, Hank Aaron, everyone has to believe this. He truly was a living icon. For me, it was absolutely amazing for me in 1994 to be named sports editor of the Milwaukee Journal. When I went to Milwaukee, I was befriended by Joe Kennedy, who was an education extraordinaire, right? He built his own school in the city, but his best friend was Hank Aaron. So Joe was like, Hank's my best friend. And I'm like, yeah. And of course, it turned out to be true. And I got a chance to meet Hank through Joe at first, because as sports editor, obviously we were going to have some interaction. But Joe introduced me to him and said that I was a sports editor at the Milwaukee Journal. And Hank looked at me and then looked back at Joe and then looked back at me and said, "You're the sports editor of the Journal, the paper here?" And I said, "Yeah, Hank." He's like, "You mean the paper here? You're the sports editor?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm in charge. I'm running." And it was such a hell of a moment because Hank laughed. He laughed like "You really are, for real?" And I said, "Yeah, times are changing." Because I think, when he first came to Milwaukee, obviously there was nobody in black that was actually covering him. To actually see a living, breathing sports editor in a city where he had actually started before the franchise moved to Atlanta, and what he meant to me personally, it wasn't just what Hank did on the field. First of all, he was the pillar of consistency. All right, 24 All-Star games, 755 home runs, just a pillar of consistency. But what he went through is what every one of our kids should understand, Roland, is that this man went through hell and still came out with a grace about him. I've met pretty much every superstar from the 80s, 90s, but Hank Aaron had a humbleness about him that I really want to share with all of your listeners, Roland. This was a humble man. You know, I said, Hank, like, you smacked it over the fence in a minute. He said, well, they couldn't throw the fastball about me. The best chance they had was a changeup, right? Because I'm smacking a fastball over it. He was confident who he was, but to endure all the things that he went through to be successful as a baseball player, to break a color line, to be a living icon, and to actually try, you know, to change the front offices in baseball. He's just an amazing man. I just have so much respect for him and my frat brother, Joe Kennedy, who built his own school in Milwaukee, thanks to Hank. All right, they were best friends for over 70 years. And to have a friendship with Hank where I actually got to interact with him over the 15 years I was sports editor in Milwaukee, was just one of the best things of my career, Roland.
Gary Howard, we certainly appreciate it, man, for sharing your thoughts about the great Hank Aaron.
Thank you so much.
In 2018, while attending the Global Hope Forum, I had an opportunity to sit down and interview Hank Aaron. I want to talk a little business with you, but first, Saturday, 7th anniversary, Jackie Robinson, Major League Baseball, 20th anniversary of them retiring his number in all of Major League Baseball. Just finished reading his book, I Never Had It Made. And I said to anybody, you have to read this book to understand that this was a different kind of brother.
Yes, he was. And now that we're talking about it, you know, they're getting ready to erect a statue of him in Los Angeles Saturday. It just so happened that I've gotten 3 or 4 calls, and I've just wishing, trying to figure out a way that I can be there. And Rachel, who doesn't travel that much, is going to be there with him, you know, going to see that the statue be erected. So I am very proud. And, you know, the thing I think that I think about with Jackie Robinson and the thing that he went through, it wasn't just baseball, hitting the baseball, but he had to be such a gentleman off the field. I mean, they expected him to walk on eggshells, you know, really. And
his inner self, though, was one always to fight back.
Yeah, well, that's right.
So to temper that.
Yes. So he just had it. And the last time I saw Jackie, of course, was at, I believe it was in Cincinnati, when he made a statement and said, I'll be more happier than anybody in the world if I can see a black man at least coaching third base. So those are the things, and those are the things that really made me feel like I was walking in the footstep of a giant.
I've said this repeatedly. Some people got mad at me. I didn't care if they did get mad at me. So there was so much made out of the first African-American in Major League Baseball. But I've reversed it. I've said, no. The best Major League talent was in the Negro Leagues. That was called Major Leagues because they had better stadiums, better uniforms, travel. I said, but when it came to the talent, I said, the Major Leagues was the Negro Leagues.
Oh, it's no question about it. You know, absolutely no question. In fact, when anybody talked to me about my upbringing and how I came about and started playing baseball so rapidly. I said I got my education through the minor leagues, playing in the Negro League, with players that really helped me learn how to play the game the way it was supposed to be played.
And the reason I think that's important is because if we keep perpetuating this notion that we're trying to be accepted into their arena, we are negating the excellence that was in our own place. It's sort of like there's so much made about when an African American kid gets accepted to an Ivy League school, or they get accepted to an HBCU. People go, okay, whatever. When I go, wait a minute, why do you think that is better than this?
Well, actually, baseball was a dull game before we started playing. And when I say we, I'm talking about people like Jackie Robinson, Campanella, and Newcomb, and all of them. And then along came, of course, our guys like Maury Wills and et cetera, who really put some excitement back in the game. Baseball was just a game like hit a baseball, Babe Ruth hit a baseball, stay at first base, hit another baseball. It was like that. It was really, to be very honest with you, it was a very dull game compared to what it was later on when those players came along and really put some excitement back in the game. It's kind of like, I guess you would kind of say that it was kind of like boxing until Muhammad Ali came along and really started showing, putting a little pep into it. It was
substance and style.
Yes, that's what it was, and that's the way baseball was,
Jackie Robinson retires, goes into business. You finish playing, go into business. Folks don't talk about the reality of how sports legends also began to break barriers when it came to the business side. Because up until the early 1970s, African Americans were not allowed into corporate America.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I'll tell you how I got into it, really. I was traveling on a plane one day, and I happened to be on the same plane as Mr. Frank Bellotti, who owned Church's Chicken at the time, who was involved in Church's Chicken. And he asked me, did I want to go in business? And I said, yes, I'd love to. He said, well, what, do you want to open up a restaurant? I said, yes, just give me an opportunity. And it's like anything else, all we want to do is just give it a chance and make the playing field a little level so we can have the same opportunity as you had.
Just give us a shot.
That's all we want. And I said, just give me an opportunity. He said, do you know anything? I said, I don't need to know it, just give me an opportunity to do some things that I wanted to do. And he did. And I went from 1 to 2, and what do we got now? I think we got something like 25 or 30 restaurants.
And then you went to other areas of business.
I went to an automobile business. Yeah, I got that. And so all we wanted to do, as I said before, and I keep saying this, in everything, no matter what it is, we had the President of the United States did such a marvel and a hell of a job. And there is absolutely no reason that we can't do anything that we want to do once the playing field gets level and we can have an opportunity to do those things.
Obviously, today is different when you see baseball players making $100, $200, $300 million. They don't have to create that second career. But what do you say to them when it comes to making that amount of money, the kind of impact they could have post-baseball career?
And I think about that. I think about when I first started playing baseball. I started with $5,000 a year as a salary. That was my salary. And playing in the Negro League, I made $200 a month. But, I didn't let that stop me from doing what I had to do. I realized that things were going to get better. And I realized that if I keep my head above water and do what I was supposed to do, that I was going to make as much money as I wanted to make and share it with as many people as I wanted to share it with. And that was the most important thing.
We go through so much when you look at just the history of the black athlete. You look at it, whether it's basketball, whether it's baseball, whether it's football. And there's no doubt, I believe, that you can tie in the advancement of African Americans in civil rights in this country to the success of black athletes, making it clear, as you said, as what James Brown said, just open the door and I get it myself.
Right. Well, they forget about Kurt Flood. And if it don't be for Kurt Flood, the millions of dollars who these athletes are making now would not have a chance. And
basketball forgets about Spencer Haywood.
Yes, you know, and you know, I think about all of these things, you know, and I had a chance to look at some of the athletes, especially some of the athletes that was played way back, Bill Russell and et cetera. You can go on and on and on, who paved the way for all of us to be where we are. You know, I mean, I realized that just because I was making $200 a month or making $5,000 a year, that I wasn't going to always stay there. If given the opportunity, I fought like hell to make doors open for me, to show people that if given the opportunity, not only me, but every black can do the same thing.
Is that why, for you, speaking at this conference is important? Because you're talking about creating opportunities, and this is about connecting people. It's about relationships. It's about somebody who has an idea, who's looking for funding, who's looking for somebody who says, I believe in you.
It is. It gives me a chance. You know, of course, I've been knowing Andy for a long time, but it's given me an opportunity to talk to so many young people and people who have been able to make some money, but also been able to say, well, you know, just because I make money, it doesn't necessarily mean that it belongs to you. You have to learn what we have to do. And I say this, I think the most important thing is that we have to learn how to share. We have to learn how to share whatever our wealth is, you know. I mean, if we make $10, we ought to learn how to split that down and share it with others. And that's what I like to do.
Do you miss the locker room? Do you miss mixing it up, the relationships? And have you ever been able to replicate that?
No, I have not missed the locker room, and I say that not bragging or anything. I think that after 23 years of playing baseball, I tell this story often, and I probably will share it with some people today, is that I remember in Baltimore, I had a friend of mine, and he and I went out to dinner one night. It was a sports writer, and I told him, I said, I can't, the balls that I hit now, that I used to hit over the fence, they don't get no further than the warning tracks. I said, I slide to second base, and I get halfway, and that's it. I said, the good Lord has shown me that He's given me the opportunity to play this game for 23 years and do everything humanly possible that I could do. Home runs batted in, playing in the All-Star Game, World Series, and et cetera. And I said, now it's time for me to show my blessing and my appreciation and give it to other people and let them go with it.
You talked before we started rolling cameras, you talked about going to family graduations.
Yes.
Children.
Yes.
Do they really understand your greatness?
You know, my granddaughter does very much so. She's into sports, and every time I go up to visit her, she says, Papa, please, I want you to be interviewed by a sports writer. She happened to be a young lady, but I think they do. I think at first they don't. No, when they're young, 4, 5, 6 years old, no. But I think that most of my kids, which I'm blessed to say that most of them are in their teens and understand, I think they understand that what I've been through.
And speaking of being through, Jack Robinson went through a lot. You went through hell breaking that Major League home run baseball record.
Yes.
And I don't think the average person understands what that level of pressure is like. And frankly, for a white baseball player, and I say it all the time, they can just play ball. I say it all the time. We would love just to be able just to go to the store and not worry about getting shot, getting followed around. We would love to be able just to be able to drive down the street and not worry about getting pulled over by the cops because of the kind of car that you drive. It is just a different kind of life.
Well, it was different. It was different for me. It was different for me chasing that record. You know, really, You'd think that the only thing I was doing was bringing a little pleasure to people's mind, enjoying a baseball game. And yet I had to have 2 or 3, Maynard Jackson, who was the mayor at that time, fix me with 2 detectives that was with me all the time. Half the time I couldn't stay at the ballpark. I had to stay in a hotel room all the time. I had to have Casanova, who was a friend of mine, to bring food to me in the hotel. So yes, things were a lot different for me than they would be for, I said this, and no pun intended, like Pete Rose was going after the record. He enjoyed it. I didn't have any enjoyment when I was going after Babe Ruth's record, because every letter I received, people were threatening me and doing all these things. So I had to worry about staying alive,
right,
or doing some other things.
I look at players today. They want to play football. They want to play basketball. I grew up playing baseball, but then there was a point where I fell out of love. I fell out of love with it. When you see the few number of black players today, what crosses your mind?
I'm worried about it, really. I am. I'm worried about it, and I have brought this to the commissioner, even Bud Selig, who was commissioner before, and I've brought it to Ron Manford. I brought it to all of mine that, that it's a problem. It is a problem. And how do we solve it? It's a long issue, really. It's something that I think that if you think about, when you think about the economic struggle that we, and I'm talking about we as black folks, have in this country, if it's a struggle, we gonna feel the pinch. Black folks gonna feel it more than anybody. And when we talk about baseball is a very, very expensive sport, because you have to have the right field to play on, you have to have the bat to play with, the glove to play with, and if your mother and father is not working to do these things, it can't do you any good. So I think that I just like to. I don't know what I can say to say that I hope that in the next few years that we can see more blacks playing this game.
There's a kid out there right now, cannot hit home runs, can't steal bases, can't do any of those things, but they can be an entrepreneur. They can be a CEO. Your advice for them?
I think that the thing that I tell most kids, most young people, that's, in fact, if they don't want to play baseball, there is things that they can do. The most important thing, I think I try to tell all kids, that there is no shortcut in life. Make sure that, if you want to play baseball, take it one step at a time. Some people can jump over a AA ball and get to the major league, or you can do things the right way. Now, if you want to go into business, you got to treat people right. The most important thing, you got to treat people right and act like it is a business. The most important thing, when I was the automobile business, or whatever I did, I didn't care whether a customer came in my store and was going to spend $1.50 on a flag or anything. I treated that customer the same way that I would treat a customer that came in and had his motor overhauled. So I think that you got to learn how to do that.
All right, then. Hammer and Hank Aaron, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks a bunch.
Thank you.
Henry Hank Aaron, dead at the age of 86. We'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Amber Stevens West.
Yo, what up, y'all? This is Jay Ellis, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Today, history was made when the United States Senate confirmed retired four-star General Lloyd Austin as the 28th Secretary of Defense, making him the first African-American in U.S. history to ascend to this cabinet position. The newly appointed Defense Secretary was sworn in at the Pentagon this afternoon and will get to work immediately for the Biden administration. Of course, this is huge because there are a number of issues that are on his table that he has to deal with. And let's talk about that with someone else who knows what it's like to actually rock 4 Army stars as a 4-star general, General Kip Ward. Glad to have you here, General Ward. First of all, before we talk about your longtime friend, Lloyd Austin, I certainly want to give you an opportunity to share your thoughts and reflections on Henry Hank Aaron.
Well, Roland, thanks. It's great to be with you this evening and your followers. Hank Aaron's loss is something that we all mourn. He clearly was one of our national treasures, a national hero. I've known him all my life. Ironically, my dad was a baseball player in the Negro Sandlot Leagues in Baltimore. And so I grew up knowing Hank Aaron, and his loss is something that we all certainly feel deeply for all that he contributed to our society as a human being, clearly as a sports star, but more appropriately as a human being, a man who we all could look to and admire. So he will be sorely missed, but we clearly treasure him for the legacy that he leaves, the example that he set, and all that he accomplished in paving the way for so many others who came behind him to be able to do what they do. So it's truly someone that I admire and love, and I will miss him. And I join the legions of others who mourn his death, but importantly, celebrate his life.
Absolutely. Let's shift back to that story about General Austin becoming head of the Pentagon. There are very few black men, no black women, very few black men who've ever attained the rank of 4-star general in the U.S. Army. You're one of those folks. There's only one right now. There are 11 white men who are 4-star generals, just one African-American. How does it make you feel to see the first African-American Secretary of Defense?
Roland, this is a feeling that candidly can't describe. Never would I have imagined that this day would come. Certainly happy to have it here, to be here. But to know that these levels of our national defense structure are attainable is something that I'm so happy about, proud of, and the fact that we see Secretary Austin now being our Secretary of Defense, the second person in the chain of command behind our Commander-in-Chief, President Biden, in control, commanding, leading the defense forces of these great United States, is something that I am absolutely happy about, proud of, and really causes me to know that indeed you work hard, you do what you do in a way that causes selfless service to be at the forefront of what you do, taking care of people, understanding the mission and accomplishing it, and all for the good of someone other than yourself is what it's about. And I am absolutely thrilled, ecstatic, that Secretary Austin has attained this rank as our very first Black Secretary of Defense in the United States of America. Truly, truly, truly an historic day.
For a lot of people, really don't understand, just like we were talking about with Henry Hank Aaron, what he had to endure in the Negro Leagues, coming into Major League Baseball, the racism that he had to contend with. I keep reminding people that, look, the military was desegregated by executive order in 1948. You still had massive racism affecting black soldiers in the Korean War, in the Vietnam War. You get to the early 1970s and you finally start seeing a true level of advancement, and you're still dealing with that. The fact that, again, here we are in 2021, and we're only talking about less than a dozen Black 4-star generals. That is still major, and the military is still having to contend with the lack of advancement by black men and women in the armed services. And so this is important because not only is it important for him to rise to that position, he clearly has earned it, but also the opportunity now to reshape the U.S. military?
We are at a place in our society, in history, whereby the ills of our past, when it came to how Black people and other minorities were treated in this country, being realized, understood by ever-increasing numbers. And this point in our history where that is so now visibly apparent to so many is clearly an inflection point in our society. You know, the military is a reflection of our society. And so the things that we see day to day truly don't occur en masse in the military because we have regulations, we have procedures, we have chains of command, we have behavioral requirements that dictate certain things be the case. But you still have attitudes. And so as we have gone through our situations and scenarios as military members, be it whatever period we've been in, we all face various things that causes it to be apparent that we always don't get treated the way others get treated. And so as these things become more and more apparent to so many more folks, these are the things that we continue to work on. I'm really happy that the military chain of command, the uniform chain of command, has certainly taken this aboard, in a way to address it in a very open, visible way by things that are being written with respect to orders and instructions and guidance to the force across the board, the services, not just the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Coast Guard. And then we have within the society an awakening to that very same thing. And so and that certainly is led by civilian leadership. And that's where we have a president now. We have a Secretary of Defense that clearly understands that. We have a uniform chain of command that will clearly take the lead from its civilian chain of command, its civilian leaders when it comes to what we do and how we address issues of the day, and clearly addressing the issue of how diverse we are, how inclusive we are, and how we apply equity to those who are part of the force so that they are, in fact, in a position to achieve any level of our military is such an important place to be. And we have now with Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin ascending to the highest position in the Department of Defense to not just be an example, but to cause the attention, the focus that will be required to implement, to ensure these things become a reality, that will be there. And so I'm happy for the day. There's work to be done, to be sure. And that work to be done will be done, I am absolutely positive, by no one more capable of leading that effort across the board than Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin.
And again, for those folks who thought I was joking, go to my iPad, please. This is the list. Right now, Michael Garrett is the commanding general of the Forces Command, the Army's lone Black 4-star officer. This is the list, y'all. This is it right here. Roscoe Robinson Jr., Colin Powell, Johnny Wilson, Larry Ellis, William Ward, Lloyd Austin, Dennis Villa, and Vincent K. Brooks. I did reach out to Generals Wilson and Brooks about coming on today. They were unable to do so. Hopefully, I'll be able to reach them as well. And one of the folks who follows us also reminds us that Michelle Janine Howard, the first Black woman to attain 4 stars in the Navy, President Joe Biden appointed her as a member of his transition team as well. General Kip Ward, always a pleasure to have you on here. I tolerate you being Omega, but at least...
Roland, one thing that let me point out, though.
Yeah.
Secretary of Defense is in charge of not just the Army. We also talking about the Navy, the Air Force.
Everybody.
We have its Air Force Chief of Staff, General Charles Brown, Black. And so we continue to put focus on this to make a difference.
I'm going to remind you, Air Force General Brown's also an alpha man. Just want to let you know that. Just want to let you know that. It's all good.
We take it all. It's all good.
General Ward, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it. Take care.
All right, folks. When we come back, the folks in Dallas County, they wanted to have the COVID vaccine go to the people who have been most impacted, Black and brown. Why is the state of Texas telling them no, if you do that, we're going to actually pull your vaccine. We'll be joined by Dallas County Commissioner John Wiley Price when we come back on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
So the King movement of 1955 is the first time in a very violent civilization, Western civilization, any sizable group of people started to work to change by insisting we can use nonviolence power to create the change. Gandhi said that nonviolent power, the power of life, is the greatest and most creative force, power of the universe. And that if we human beings turn away from conventional wisdom towards using the gift of life, which is ours at birth, we would be surprised what the future of the human race will look like.
Dumb.
Stupid.
Crazy. Dangerous.
Stinks.
You are leading the way for the rest of this state. And we believe that this state is on the verge of shocking the entire country.
Nobody turn us around.
In spite of all that you have endured this year alone, this is still a good life city?
Yeah. If it turns out that the Senate is hinging on one seat, and there's only one race left, that's right. This will literally be the epicenter of the entire country, right? So we ready.
Music has an ability to be able to help us feel connected. And that's because music has a way of speaking to the spirit. And it is the spirit we're going to change this country with. It is going to be standing in a space of our power and in the fullness of our spirit of love and the spirit of humanity. That is what's going to transform America.
Earlier this week, Dallas County Commissioners Court voted to prioritize vaccines for individuals in mostly Black and Latino neighborhoods. It only makes sense, given the fact that communities of color have been hit the hardest by COVID-19. However, Texas health officials said, no, y'all can't do that. Not acceptable. And threatened to cut the county's vaccine supply if they did so. Joining me now is Dallas County Commissioner John Wiley Price. Commissioner Price, this is an insult. Here y'all, first of all, I'm trying to understand. Republicans always talk this shit about local rule, local control, big government. Here y'all are elected by the citizens of Dallas County to handle Dallas County, but Texas says, no, we're going to tell y'all what to do in Dallas County. And if I'm reminding, Dallas County and Harris County tried to tell the idiot Governor Greg Abbott how to respond to COVID. He said, no, open everything up, and cases exploded all across Texas.
Well, as usual, Roland, you're right on the money. And the real travesty is the Department of Health State Services has no idea about the demographic logistics of what's going on here in Dallas. When we even look at the vaccine distribution, they're sending it to hospitals that have no footprint in the southern sector or where the majority of African Americans and Latinos reside. And so, January 11th, the state opened up HUD. They told us to use the vulnerability index. That's what we did. And, and to add insult to injury, guess what? We did it, passed a court order. The next day, we got our hands spanked. And of course, the court caved. And guess what? Tarrant County, they're doing it now. Doing the same identical thing. The only difference is we put it in a court order to try to bring our judge into check. And the reason we had to do this is because the 1B tier says 65 and older. He decided on his own volition that he was going to do 75. When you look at the life expectancy index, where African Americans are, and if you look at the community health needs assessment, which is nothing but the third leg of the Affordable Care Act that requires hospitals to not only have a plan, but implement a plan, the life expectancy for African Americans is 66 years old. If you started at 75, then you're leaving a lot of us out of the equation. In addition to that, that same community health needs assessment says African Americans live 23 years less than our Anglo counterparts, south of 30. Now, a lot of your listeners may not know what 30 is, but you do. And then it's like 30 is a divide. And so that's what we're find ourselves dealing with. And now they threaten it, and I was the one that said, okay, I don't borrow many things from the Republicans. My thing is, okay, come and take it. If you're going to say you're going to take the second largest county's vaccine in this state, we got 300,000 people who have signed up. We still live in an internet desert, in this city, a digital divide. And when you get to 75 with a lot of our population, they don't have the wherewithal. And so, we got, all of the things that coming together that is against what we as local officials have said is best in terms of how we outreach to our community.
So what's next? Do y'all just have to accept what they said? What are you going to do?
Well, they rescinded it. I did not vote for it. I was the only one. We were supposed to call an emergency meeting today. Everyone is getting kind of, chicken-hearted about all of this. We're going to call a special meeting next week and go from there. But, as I talked to my senator today, Senator Royce West, I said, look, I just find it peculiar. Why does Tarrant County, which is what we call a red county, and Dallas County, which is a blue county, why do they get a chance to do the same thing? The only thing they did different than we did is they didn't put it in writing. They didn't put it in writing, Roland. They're doing the same thing. They are selecting zip codes. We selected 10 zip codes, the most vulnerable, not by what we thought, but why Parkland Health and Hospital Systems, their PCCI, which is their database, which basically goes off the Center for Disease Control, which continues to talk about, the chronic illnesses that we've been dealing with for the last several decades. Nothing is new, but you're exactly right. You got people in Austin, they can't even decide whether to send us Pfizer or Moderna. As you know, you can't mix them, okay? So, we're the only ones doing the safety net. Parkland is reaching out into the community. Ellis Davis Fieldhouse, Eastfield, other hospitals, and I won't call their names, like UT Southwestern and others, they have no footprint in the South. And so this is what we're wrestling with at the state. So Senator West is calling a meeting for this coming Tuesday night to talk about how do we go forward from here. But my position is, I'm staying the course.
Absolutely. Well, look, that's why they call you our man downtown, and certainly what Dallas County is dealing with is what Black communities are dealing with all across the country. You would think that those who are most in need, more Black people have died. Proportionally, more black medical workers have died as a result of COVID. You would think that that's who you would try to give it to first, but that's not what's happening. In fact, we're lagging significantly all across the country when it comes to African Americans getting the COVID vaccine.
You're exactly right, and we've got to put up the fight. Of course, hopefully, the feds to the rescue here, and we get more vaccine and. But we have still got to make decisions for our communities. We know our communities.
Absolutely. Dallas County Commissioner John Wiley Price, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland, as always.
Yes, sir. Folks, House Democrats will send the article of impeachment against Donald Trump to the U.S. Senate on Monday. This means Donald Trump's impeachment trial is going to begin on, first of all, Mitch McConnell has announced it's actually going to begin on February 8th to give Trump time to hire his legal team. Trump was charged with inciting the insurrection that took place at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. In order for Trump to be convicted, Democrats would need a 2/3 majority. That means if all 50 Democrats vote to convict him, at least 17 Republicans would have to follow suit. There's no word if you're going to have the 17 Republicans who are going to do so. All right, folks, going to go to a break right now. When we come back, we'll talk about President Joe Biden signing an executive order dealing with student loan debt. How is that going to impact black students? We'll explain next on Roland Martin Unfiltered. For black Americans,
right,
because of slavery, because of the complete destroying of the past, there really is no direct connection to various African countries.
Right.
But the reality is for Latinos, and even if you use that phrase, first of all, I'm from Texas. So in Texas, Hispanics is used. Other parts of the country, they say, no, call me Latino.
Mm-hmm.
Other folks, call me Chicano. And so you also sort of have that going on. There's a connection with country as well.
Right.
And so if you're from Mexico, if you're from Colombia, if you're from any other particular country, it's, yeah, I'm here, but I'm also from there. As opposed to, no. This is my country. I'm involved in everything here. I think that's also something that's also at play.
It is at play, and it's unfortunate because it happens even when we're not talking about politics. I think that Latinos, the word, it's very divided because we all have this allegiance to this other place that we came from. But I believe that that's not helping us. That's not unifying the country. We need to come together and understand that this is where you're raising your kids. This is where you're paying taxes. This is where you're living. This is your country. This is where it matters.
For Biden has only deferred student loan payments on federal loans until October 1st. But even if he followed through with this student debt plan, what does it all mean for black students? The student debt crisis has disproportionately impacted black borrowers and saddled black students with the most debt. Joining me now is Ashley Harrington. She is the Federal Advocacy Director for the Center for Responsible Lending. Glad to have you on the show, Ashley. This executive order that he signed, what does it mean for black students? Explain to the people who are watching and listening.
So it means that we do have a longer pause. So for most federal borrowers who had federally held loans, loans have been loan payments have been suspended and interest has been waived since March of last year. That has now been extended through the end of September. So those of us, so many people are struggling right now, unemployment, underemployment, health issues, all of that. So the pause has been extended to give people a little more breathing room. But what we really need, Roland, what black folk really need is student debt cancellation. And that is what we are hoping is the next step on Biden's path.
And so what's the path to that particular process? Because what we're dealing with here, first of all, let's just be honest, you saw Betsy DeVos fighting that left and right. Will Congress have to act, or is this something that Biden can actually do through executive order?
This is absolutely something that Biden can do by executive order. And we shouldn't have to wait on Congress. You're absolutely right. We've been waiting on Congress to do a lot of things for a long time, and they have a lot to do even right now to address this pandemic, to address all the other things going on in our society. So there is a mechanism. President Biden already has the authority under existing statute to cancel student debt. And so we are urging him to use that authority, take this step. There are very few bold steps that a president can do on his own without Congress. But this is one of them, and this will provide relief to so many people. It's an economic stimulus, and it's a racial equity move. It's a no-brainer.
And absolutely. And so, then, of course, that has some people who are going, I don't know, these executive orders that Biden, they have no impact on black people. I'm going, are you stupid? Because here's the other piece. When we talk about black student loan debt for students, we got to remember, black parents are signing okay, those loan applications as well. When you talk about the Parent Plus loan, you have parents who are on the hook for thousands of dollars when it comes to student loan debt. So this directly impacts black people. And if you have student loan debt forgiveness, then that's also now an opportunity for the next generation now to have that debt wiped out. They now can build their lives without $20, $30, $40, $50, $100,000 hanging over their head.
That's absolutely right. We have tens of thousands of dollars in student debt, and it's intergenerational. You're right. It's parents, it's students. You got grandparents who have debt. You know, there are grandparents who are getting their Social Security garnished because of student debt. That is a very real thing, and it is a black folks problem. When we're talking about a student debt crisis, yes, everybody borrows, but black students borrow more, are more likely to borrow and to struggle more in repayment. And it's all because of systemic racism, the legacy of that, how we have been left out of wealth building opportunities for centuries. But it's now coming to bear in this $1.7 trillion crisis. You just look at the class of 2016, 85% of the black students in that class, of the black graduates in that class, borrowed an average of almost 35K. It was 70% for the rest of the population, and they borrowed about 30K. And it takes us longer to pay off. We're more likely to default. We're more likely to not be making progress paying it down, and it impacts the rest of our lives. We can't buy houses. We can't start businesses. We can't save for retirement. It is truly impeding us from building wealth when it was supposed to be the ladder to wealth building and financial security.
Ashley, what do you want the folks watching and listening to do to push this thing along?
Email President Biden, email Vice President Harris, call your Congress folks as well. Let them know that you do need cancellation, that payment suspension is not enough, that absolutely we need this. It is of utmost concern. And that, yes, after that, we also need debt-free college. We need a path to never get in this situation again. But right now we have an unsustainable crisis on our hand, and it is burdening our community the most.
Ashley Harrington, we surely appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Mlk Fbi is a new documentary, folks, that, trust me, you want to watch, that deeply dissects the FBI's corrupting relationship with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It's directed by Emmy Award-winning Sam Pollard, and it features interviews and activists and former members of the FBI. The film, which received rave reviews at several festivals last year, uses declassified files and recently unveiled documents to tell the story of how the FBI targeted and tortured Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights activists. Watch.
Violence is self-defeating. He who lives by the sword will perish by the sword.
You know, when you construct a man as a great man, there's nothing almost more satisfying than also seeing him as the opposite.
When the National Archives puts government documents,
information that we shouldn't have. The FBI was most alarmed about King because of his success.
He realized how sick this country was. We were trying to reveal the truth about segregation.
It's clear Martin Luther King Jr. is the most dangerous Negro in America, and we have to use every resource at our disposal to destroy him.
J. Edgar Hoover was the head of the FBI for 48 years.
The FBI's focus was collecting salacious sexual material of King with various girlfriends.
Hoover had made the speech that Martin Luther King was the world's most notorious liar.
Now, what am I going to do about Martin Luther King? Looks to me like he's too far gone.
This was a way that they could bring down a very influential black civil rights leader and contain the movement.
The FBI mailed a tape of Dr. King with other women to him and to Coretta with an advice that he should go kill himself.
The greatness of America is the right to...
When people are trying to kill you.
They use surveillance in order to
foment violence and
break apart these organizations.
Glad to have you on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Nice seeing you.
New Jersey, and actually, this one was actually signed by Hank Aaron. When, of course, when he honored me with. Put this in context for people who don't flat out.
Supposed to be the nation's police, leading this movement to be second-class citizens. They want to be integrated. Hope these tapes They grabbed onto that bone to try to really destroy and discredit Dr. King's reputation, going so far as to create a letter. Suppose we know what you've done, and you should, you have a certain number of days and you know what to do, intimating they want him to commit suicide. And then on top of that, they created an audio tape that was supposedly Dr. King with another woman. And they sent this letter and this audio tape to Coretta Scott King. I mean, this was not legal, and this proves, that these guys were thugs.
You talked to historian David Garrow in this, and
yes, we did.
There was a piece that he wrote that no American magazine or newspaper will publish, which was based upon these declassified documents that detail that were the written notes of alleged audio recordings of Dr. King. These tapes are going to be released in 2027, am I correct?
That's correct.
I have talked to people who were close to Bernice King and the King children, that they are greatly bothered by the release of these tapes. Garrow laid out and I read the piece, where these notes detail women, it details the names of women, addresses, it details prostitutes, it goes on and on and on. They even write down in these notes of a so-called hearing a woman allegedly being raped by a pastor out of Baltimore while King laughed. I was asked about that, and this is what I said. There ain't a damn thing I can trust from the FBI.
Well, I completely agree. The FBI doctors tapes. They edit these tapes. And and they had a mission. They were there to destroy King. So anything they heard, they were able to alter that to fit their needs. My reaction to this idea about the tapes being released, and I said this before, I'm not interested in any salacious stuff on these tapes, because I think unless the FBI edited these tapes very heavily, there were other types of discussions that King had in those hotel rooms in Birmingham and Albany and Selma, with people like Ralph Abernathy and Andy Young and C.T. Vivian and Wyatt T. Walker about their strategies when they were in these cities. If that's on these tapes, then I would be interested in hearing that. I'm not interested in hearing these salacious.
But you know what's going to happen, Sam? And again, I've had people who have asked me, "Hey, Roland, what do you think about this? How would you respond?" Because when it comes out, and then Garrow even sort of lays out, "Hey." In this whole era of Me Too and how people are looking at historical figures, are people going to demand King's name be taken off of schools and highways and streets, things along those lines? My most basic premise is there is nothing that I can trust from the FBI. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't give a damn what's on those tapes. I can't trust anything, because first of all, what they did was grossly illegal, what they did was immoral, and we know for a fact that they've doctored information. So I don't care if someone tries to argue, well, the notes were taken in real time. I don't trust the notes. I don't trust the note taker. I don't trust the tapes. I don't trust anything that came from J. Edgar Hoover and his FBI, because we also know for a fact after Adam Clayton Powell died, his home was broken into, and the manuscript that he was writing all of a sudden came up missing. Hoover dies, and these so-called Hoover files were removed by his secretary before the officials from the White House and others got there. There's nothing that I trust, and that should be the stance of every person in Black America when these tapes are actually released.
Well, this is what I would say. If those people who didn't like King when he was alive, they still won't like him when he's dead, if the tapes are released or not. There's people out there in America who still have no use for Dr. King, So I think, it's one of these tricky things to me. We live in a country that's so divided. There were people who hated King when he was alive, and there's people who hate him now. That's my response to that.
I ask this to book authors all the time. What's that one wow moment when they were doing the research for the book? What was it for you that made you go, wow? Or maybe it made you go, damn?
The wow moment, quite honestly, for me, Roland, was the footage that we had in the film where I saw Dr. King relaxed, where he was in there. There was this footage of him with Coretta Scott King and his children when they were young, and they were in some playroom, and his parents were sitting there, and he seemed relaxed. He seemed very calm. And then when he was on the Merv Griffin show, Harry Belafonte, he seemed relaxed. And that's not footage I've ever really seen of Dr. King where he seemed so relaxed and just, comfortable with himself. So those were two wow moments for me.
Well, that's why I think when people saw that photo of Dr. King playing pool, I interviewed Dorothy Cotton, and it was the last sit-down interview before she died in 2018. And she talked about when they had to go somewhere and give a speech, she had to pull him out of pool halls because he was having a grand time playing pool with the brothers and talking to them. And that's the other thing, that for all the people who say Dr. King was this middle-class Negro preacher, no, he was very comfortable around black folks regardless of economic status.
Yeah, he absolutely was. He absolutely was. I mean, that's what made him so special to all of us. This man was a great orator, but he was also one of us. I mean, that's what made him special. I was saying, growing up in my household in the 60s, we had 3 pictures on our wall. We had Dr. King, we had John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and we had Jesus Christ. Those were the 3 sort of deities that my family loved to look at when they walked into the living room every night.
The depths of the FBI's corruption. One of the reasons why we know how deep this thing is, they have yet to fully declassify all the papers of COINTELPRO.
Well, that's what I find interesting. When James Comey says in the film, this was one of the darkest chapters in the history of the FBI, I think you and I both know there are other darker chapters in the history of the FBI.
Absolutely. And the reality is, I think the American people deserve this. And if there's one thing that President Joe Biden should do, President Joe Biden should completely declassify every sheet of paper related to COINTELPRO. Any African-American who was under investigation, because we also should know who were those turncoats, who were those informants. We know for a fact that, and the movie that's coming out dealing with Fred Hampton, the Judas and the Messiah, that the right-hand man of Fred Hampton was an FBI informant. We know that when William O'Neill. We know when Dr. King was assassinated, one of the very people who was bending over his body when they were pointing out was an FBI informant.
Yeah, that's right. And we also say in the film that Ernest Withers, who's a very well-known, renowned photographer, the I Am a Man picture, was also an informant for the FBI. So this is some very, it's tricky and complicated stuff in American history. It just shows the hypocrisy of America, as far as I'm concerned.
What do you want the folks to take away from watching this? There's a lot of stuff that that have been in other documentaries. We've seen stuff in movies. But what do you want folks to really walk away after they watch Mlk Fbi?
I want them to walk away understanding that Dr. King was a human being, a man with flaws, but also a great man whose contribution to the world will last forever. That's what I want people to come away with. The other thing that I want them to come away with is that the duplicity of the FBI, that we're trying to demythologize how people have saw them for so many years, and J. Edgar Hoover. So those are the 2 things I want.
Should J. Edgar Hoover's name be removed from the FBI building?
It should, but nobody will do it.
That's what's amazing to me. For all of this talk about Jacob, what this man did with his secret files and how he wielded such power, we literally have the name of a criminal on the building of the so-called most important law enforcement agency in America.
Exactly. That we should all be writing on Congress people and senators.
But then again, I got to remind people that one of the building where they house the offices of the United States Senate is named after one of the greatest white supremacist segregationists, Richard Russell of Georgia.
That's right. You're right. Russell, that's true.
That's America.
America, man. It's America hypocrisy.
Sam Pollard, we appreciate it. Thank you so very much for this important documentary.
Thank you, Roland. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. All right, folks, that is it for us today on Roland Martin Unfiltered. It is certainly, it has been a sad day for us, having to chronicle the life and legacy and the loss of 86-year-old Henry Hank Aaron passing away today. We certainly extend our thoughts and prayers to his wife, Billy, and his family. Coming up next, folks, after we end the show, we're going to stream for you the conversation between Henry Aaron and Ambassador Andrew Young that took place at the Global Hope Forum in 2018. In addition to that, we're also going to show you the panel conversation, first of all, the award presentation and the panel conversation that took place in 2017 when Henry Aaron awarded me, as well as Cito Gaston, as well as Alexis Herman, and freedom rider Hank Thomas, the Hank Aaron Champions of Justice Award. It was an unbelievable day. It was amazing to be there and to be honored by them. In fact, what they did is they gave us all personalized jerseys, and so in terms of what number we wanted on the back, and so. I should have got 44, but I didn't, because they were like, no, we want to make it personalized. So I went ahead, and folks have been telling me I need to frame this jersey, because for the front, but we also, I did this on the back, so you'll see, I had Last Day in Martin 06 put on it, and so it was a really great time we had there. Henry Aaron was truly a remarkable figure, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to pay tribute to him right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. And this is also one of the reasons, folks, why we do what we do. Because when it comes to black media, when you think about if someone passed away and Ebony Magazine did commemorative issues, well, it must do the same thing. And I've seen some other black media people literally make no mention of Hank Aaron today. In fact, I've seen some where they wrote a story that was nothing personal, nothing interesting. In fact, it could have been written, frankly, by any white organization. So I just think, bottom line, folks, when I look at why we do what we do, is because we have to give honor to our people. We must give them their flowers when they're living, and we did that with Hank Aaron, and we certainly want to be able to pay tribute to him. That's why we need you to support what we do here at Roland Martin Unfiltered by joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Y'all, ain't nobody else doing this. I'm watching MSNBC right now, and they're paying tribute to Hank Aaron at the end of the show. They're basically giving him a couple of minutes. That's why we did an hour and 15-minute tribute. And once we find out if there's going to be a public funeral for Henry Aaron, I've already made it clear we will go back to Atlanta and we will broadcast that as well, because he deserves that, and a new generation deserves to hear his story. Please support us. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal.me/R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo.com is /RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. We always end the show, folks, with our members of our Bring the Funk fan club. If you do not see your name, that list is getting longer and longer because y'all been supporting us. If you do not see your name, please simply send us an email, and then we will certainly add your name to it. Thank you so very much. I will see you on Monday. Holla!